Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I kind of wanted to have a loose discussion about the anime series Re:Zero, or Life in a Different World from Zero, which I just concluded watching not long ago as of the time of this recording. And it was a series I did not watch from the start, from when it began. It was a series I had recommended to me a couple of times, and around episode 18, I believe it was, I actually finally caved and got curious, and I went back and I decided to watch it from the first episode, and I ended up marathoning it over like a couple of days and just being really drawn into it and compelled by it and enjoying the absolute hell out of it. And from episode 18 onward, I would watch it weekly and, up until the finale, which just aired as of the time of this recording, not very long ago. And I found myself feeling somewhat interesting about the series. Like, it really gripped me by the lapels going into it, and I was really thoroughly excited by it. And then by the end, I don't know exactly how to put it except to say I feel like there were aspects of the story where they lost focus, and those things that kept me really compelled and drew me in so, with such ferocity toward the beginning of the series began to taper away, and I was just kind of watching it with still raised expectations, but not finding those expectations to be met. And it really harkened back to me the sensations I went through in watching the first and second seasons of a somewhat arguably similar series, Sword Art Online. When I began watching Sword Art Online, the first half of the first season was gangbusters. It just grabbed me by the throat and wouldn't let go. It kept me in a chokehold, on the edge of my seat. The characters' lives were truly at stake. There was so much intrigue in waking up in a sort of fantasy, MMORPG kind of framework. And that's very much the case for Re:Zero. The main character, Subaru, finds himself just in a convenience store. He leaves after buying like a cup of noodles and something else, He's carrying the bag, and he just wakes up in this fantasy RPG environment, this backdrop. And there's this intrigue that really, heightens the suspense, where you've got sort of black magic going on, you've got thief characters, you've got bully characters. He ends up killed, and he resets, in a sense, back to zero. And it's something he later goes on in the evolution of the character to refer to as like reaching a save point, because if he can get certain actions carried out, if he can do certain things, if he can change certain events, it almost creates like a save point that subsequent times where he will die or face his own mortality, he won't be brought back to the absolute first point he awakened in the world anymore. It'll be a new spot that, he awakens again and he's alive and he hasn't actually died and all this stuff. So there is that heavy sort of gaming framework that really reminded me of Sword Art Online. But there's also that similar aspect in both Sword Art Online and Sword Art Online 2, which again arguably are kind of a similar framework, although those were more ensemble casted series, whereas this series arguably is the focus is always on Subaru and his decisions and what he's going through, with the sort of, side characters surrounding him, not taking as much of the limelight, so to speak. But each of those Sword Art Online seasons really started out great, and especially Sword Art Online 2, I absolutely loved the start of that second season, the entire GGO arc, or Gun Gale Online arc. And again, it was a similar framework where once it got beyond that point, it just seemed to lose its way a little bit as far as what was keeping me so compelled. And that's how I really feel about Re:Zero. It began to lose me a little bit. I found myself still watching, still having those high hopes and those high expectations, and it just kind of faltered for me. I don't know if there was a loss of focus, if I'm the only one who felt that, or if other people, can agree with me on that. But for all intents and purposes, I just kind of feel like when you get to the latter half of this first season, presumably there will be more to come because there's so many unanswered questions by the end. Like when you get to that ending, it's just like the characters who are in focus, They haven't been in focus for a while, and why should I care about them? Amelia, the half-elf, most notably, she's a strong character from the outset. You had Subaru meeting Amelia, meeting the character Felt, who I thought Felt was going to be a sort of lasting character, and she kind of just disappeared. I thought she was really cool. And there's that whole run-in he has with the bullies repeatedly, time and again, and it was kind of hilarious that every time he runs into him, before he's working it out in his mind what's happening, he's like, God, you guys are relentless. You just keep coming after me again and again and again. You're even spouting the same dialogue. It's like, what's wrong with you? And then he finally figures out, oh, I'm like time looping, that kind of thing. Every time I get killed, I wake up back at point zero. And Amelia, I really liked her character. I liked Puck, the little cat sort of sidekick, which, depending on, the focus in dialogue, is either sort of a summonable creature she can use to enhance magic, or then there's other times where, it's what, her parent, her mother? It was really all kinds of confusing, but I thought it was really interesting from a sort of X-Men kind of perspective that there is some discrimination against her character. There's an almost level of racism because she so embodies visually what everyone knows the evil witch to be, Satella. And even in their first encounter, does she refer to herself as Satella, as kind of like a tongue-in-cheek, mocking jab, I guess, at Subaru, and subsequently this is a history that is wiped, and there are several other events that are wiped, so she doesn't have the same familiarity with him that he has with her, this burgeoning love affair he has with her. And it just feels like, she disappears from the story for a while, and this adds to that aspect of losing its way, losing cohesion for me. You have the twin sister maids, Rem and Ram. And Rem is like my favorite character in the entire series, because here is a character, unlike Amelia, who is supposed to be the romantic focus, who disappears from the story for a while, who by the end, when, you get to the finale and Subaru is professing his love for her, and she's so happy and she's crying and teary-eyed, I feel like I'm supposed to feel something for her. I'm supposed to be happy for her. I'm supposed to be drawn to her character, but I'm absolutely not. In fact, I'm somewhat angry that Rem is nowhere to be found at this point. She's been eschewed. She's been sent packing, go off with these characters, be no longer involved in the story, because even though she has fallen head over heels in love, obsessively so, with Subaru, after having been like a psycho killer for a while in several of the previous histories that he time loops and is reborn in, I really got drawn to the Rem character. She had thorough character growth. From the outset, you're not sure whether you can trust her, and then she's perceived as almost being a villain going after Subaru, and then he manages in another history to earn her trust, and he knows exactly how to sort of push her buttons and mold her expectations of him, and then he kind of makes an enemy of her sister Ram for that reason, and it's so highly compelling. So that when Rem finally is at a point where she is head over heels in love with him, I love that. I want nothing more than for him to be interested in her, and to see that blossom and grow and become a thing. And as I say, because they lost focus, I mean, they throw in the White Whale expedition with Krush-sama and everything like that, and that was somewhat compelling and somewhat exciting, because you have this whale that can swallow people up and erase them from history and no one remembers them, Rem being one of them. And the whole aspect of getting Wilhelm von Astria involved, he was all kinds of badass, calling back on his prehistory. Here are interesting characters that only gain so much focus, but it seems like so much focus is put on them, and then it just tapers back and it pulls back away from them. It's like you get us hooked to these characters, Rem, Krush herself, Wilhelm, and then you pull back from them, and you expect us to care about Amelia at this point toward the end of the series. I just really felt like the ground underneath my feet was beginning to become faulty and crackling apart, and I was getting attracted and attached to all of these different characters. You have a character like Felis, who for all intents and purposes, we're told is a male character, but for all intents and purposes is voiced by a female voice actress, is made to look like a cat girl and everything like that. And I found that to be something that was, sort of touchstone compelling. And beyond that, that's sort of like the one-note joke is that, to snap Subaru out of a trance of some sort, this cat girl looking dude is going to like lick his ear and suck on his ear and wake him up out of it, snap him up out of it. It's like, okay, that's the limit of this character. The character's a healer, and just only after all of these battles are said and done do we then focus back on this character and have them healing other wounded characters and such, and Rem and Ram, all that stuff with their history of being demons and being split, so they each have one horn, but Ram lost hers and all this kind of stuff. It's like uber utmost compelling and drawing me in and just having me astounded and so captivated by these characters, and then they're thrown by the wayside. The idea of having to convince Cruise-sama to get an armed force together to go after the white whale, and seeing him having to like impress her time and again through rehistory after rehistory, being killed and coming back, and having to approach it in different ways, like the fact that he could earn her trust, and there was almost a level of flirtation going on there once everything was said and done. Again, utmost captivating, utmost compelling. She's thrown by the wayside, never to be seen again. Like once these characters serve somewhat of a purpose, they're gone. Julius, like the tensions that mounted between Subaru and he in their opening coming together when they first met each other, subsequently battling and subsequently apologizing to each other, and then subsequently being a force to be reckoned with in having to go up against this Beetlejuice character who like was all kinds of psychotic and not, I wouldn't say that interesting, but interesting in just how psychotic he was. My brain is trembling and, bending backwards like crazy and all this stuff. It's like, I really wish we had seen a posse come together in this final battle. Even if you still have to fall back on the haunches of Subaru loves Emilia, it would have been much more compelling rather than the focus being strictly on him working just singularly with Julius. It would have been really compelling to see Julius and Rem and Krush and Wilhelm as sort of a posse, as sort of a party to go up against, if not Beetlejuice by himself, like some kind of big bad, the witch Satella herself. And what really adds insult to injury for me is by the end, this confession of love that goes on and on and on. It gives the many endings of the Lord of the Rings movies a run for its money in Subaru's confessions to Emilia and her crying it out and being so joyous and the happy tears a-flowing and all that kind of stuff, only to have a blurb show up on the screen saying, well, this is what the story's really about. So we're never going to find out how Subaru got sucked into this world, why it happened, what this world is. It's like a parallel world. He says that in the early going, but we're never going to have an assured answer to that. Is he ever going to return home? Is this going to be his home forever and a day? What's with the witch Satella? Is this a creature, a monster who's still going to be out there somewhere that's going to have to be gone after and destroyed? What is, up with her sort of manipulating him and having a hold on him and giving him this ability? Anytime he mentions her, he trips into this alternate realm and he uses this against Beetlejuice. And it's like, well, what's that all about? Well, they're telling us like a slap in the face, it's not about that. Don't worry about that. It's just about this love affair with this character who we haven't seen in so long. Why should we care that she's crying happily, that Subaru's confessing his love for her? Like, am I the only one feeling this way? Feeling frustrated that it started out so strong and it started out so captivating, and it just feels like it lost its way. And again, like, as far as a romantic tie between characters, Subaru and Rem, man. I'm shipping Subaru and Rem all day long, all the live long day. because there's so much more attraction to that character, so much more growth and depth that we were given insights into. Oh, are we just supposed to take it for what it is by the end, that it's a love story between Subaru and Amelia because Amelia has been so disdained, because she has been so discriminated, because she happens to conform to what, the known visual specs of the witch Satella is, and so we're supposed to feel bad for her, and we're supposed to be happy that she has some kind of happiness, but we never get to spend enough time with her to really know her, with the exception of early in the series, in the early going. And I don't know, for that, I just kind of felt like by the end it was a letdown, and it was even that much further a slap in the face for them to have to put that text up there. This is what the story's really about. It's kind of a cop-out. So we don't have to answer any of those lingering questions, those overhanging questions. Maybe they'll delve into in a continuation season, in a furthering of the story. I have no idea. I just, it was a very interesting series. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it was highly frustrating by the end because there were so many characters that I was much more interested in and invested in and intrigued with. And then by the end, they're just sort of cast by the wayside, and we're just handed Amelia back and said, this is really what it's all about. Forget all that other stuff. Forget those unanswered questions. Forget all of the mystery and all that kind of stuff. It's just, this is what it's about, and you're going to take it. You're going to swallow it, you're going to like it, and that's it. That's the pill you have to swallow. And so, yeah, I mean, like I say, it wasn't the worst series ever. It really, really reminded me of the experiences I had with Sword Art Online and Sword Art Online 2, where I just feel like it started off so strong and so captivating, and it just kind of lost its way. The time looping, the being alive and awake in this world that is a fantasy RPG kind of setting, seeing all of that mystery and that enigmatic nature with the first sort of murderess that, Subaru runs into when he has to save the lives of Felt and her sort of, I don't know, guardian grandfather guy, that whole idea of her having stolen the jewel or whatever it was from Amelia and having to get that back for Amelia. It's like 50 First Dates or whatever that movie is. I've never seen it, but it sounds like the same kind of framework where he's going to meet Amelia again and again and again, and he's going to be the only one who remembers any of their encounters. And what was it all for? For her to disappear from the story for quite a while, be almost an enemy to Subaru, and then in the end, his calling out there and confessing there, and we're all happy-go-lucky by the end. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. If you've seen ReZero, if you watched it entirely, do you feel like I do? Do you feel like it faltered toward the end? Do you feel like it was pitch perfect? Anything goes in the comments below. Love it or hate it. Just love having that conversation, and I really just wanted to vent. Not, again, full reviewing the series because I don't feel like it's worthy of it. If it's going to let me down like that, I don't feel like it's worthy really going into an in-depth discussion. Except to really just vent my frustrations that it didn't end up being and maintaining that level of as good as I expected it to be. So yeah, otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.